These are all charged up. Welcome to our slice of Alaska homestead. Today we're going to be talking about what is off-grid. And to different people, could have different applications. First of all, I'd like to talk about, well, how did we end up off-grid? And our intentions were that we weren't going to be off-grid. We had plans of moving further north, but those plans didn't quite work out. So we ended up being blessed with this piece of property that we came across. It was 10 acres. But it didn't have a home on it, and obviously it didn't have utilities. So we took care of the home part of it. We got our house put up in that summer of 17, but we still had an issue. We had to have power. So knowing very little about off-grid, we went on a search and destroy mission to try to figure out how to get electricity to our house. And lo and behold, I found out that it really wasn't that hard. But every application, like I said, is different. You can be off-grid with certain conveniences, or you can go full-blown hippie off-grid and live however you want. Either way, that's your choice. But today we're going to be talking about what our system is. And so when we got our system, what we got 4 solar panels. We got a charge controller, inverter, and we got some batteries and a whole bunch of wire. So knowing very little about what off-grid was and how that all worked, we had to learn real quick. We got a little help from some people who did know. And so our system, as we'll show you, it starts with the generator. So we have 2 Honda 7000 generators. And the reason that we picked those were a couple reasons. One is they're very dependable. We've had very little problems with them in our 7-8 years that we've had them. And we wanted something to make sure that we had enough power. My intention when I first thought being off-grid, I thought you had to have some big power plant generator sitting in your backyard, powering your house. But what we found out is that that's not necessarily true. So what we did was we figured out what our house needed, what we needed to power our house, the wattage of every wattage. We added it up, and we found out that a 7,000 watt generator was perfectly sufficient. What we did then is what we found out in the first year or two is that, like probably most things in Alaska, you need 2 of each, because things don't always work quite like you want them to. So we went and purchased another 7,000 watt Honda generator and got it hooked up in the shed. The shed has worked really well. I elevated up the generator so I could change the oil on a frequent basis, which is very important because those do not have oil filters. So it starts with the generator. You get yourself a good generator. And we got 4 solar panels. And on the peak of a summer day, we can get anywhere from 1,400 to 1,500 watts. So in most summer days in Alaska, they overproduce. We don't use that much electricity in the summer. So what happens is we collect the energy off the sun. It goes down into the inverter and charge controller, and then it's stored. It's stored in batteries. So when we first got our system, we got leaded batteries. Now the lithium batteries are a little pricier. They're going to cost you a little bit more, but what we found out, we could get by with less with those lithium batteries, and they're a heck of a lot lighter and easier to store. The thing about those lithium batteries is they can't get too cold. As of 2017 and now in start of 2025, things have changed a lot. Applications for solar is unbelievable. You can buy solar panels that will collect sun on both sides of them. You can do all sorts of things. The mounting of the solar panels, you can mount them on poles. You can mount them as you can see. We mounted ours on our roof. It has its pros and it has its cons. I have to clean them off quite a bit when it snows. In the wintertime, it becomes an issue. The poles, if you can adjust the panels to the exact sunlight at the time, you gain a little bit more. It's a little more pricier of a setup, but you gain a little bit off of that. So we have the solar panels, we have the charge controller, the inverter. Takes the extra energy that we produce, whether it's off the sun or whether it's off the generator, and it stores it in the batteries. So on a typical day, like today is January 2nd, um, the sun, we probably got 5 hours, 40 minutes of sunlight today. The sun isn't very high in the sky. We're probably getting maybe 20 watts today off the panels, which isn't enough to power our house. And so we run the generator. So what we do in the morning, usually we'll get up and we'll start the generator. And what it usually takes about an hour and a half to about an hour and 40 to fully charge the batteries. And in that time of us charging the batteries, we usually try to get our stuff done. We try to get our laundry done. We get a coffee made. We do things that require a lot of electricity. One of the things, two of the things that require a lot of electricity is heat and cold. So if you're going to heat something like the microwave, the coffee pot, and other things, it takes a lot of electricity. If you're going to cool things down, the refrigerator, the freezer, stuff like that, those also take a lot of electricity. The good thing is we don't need an air conditioner here in Alaska, usually. We don't have to worry about that. So what we do then is after about an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes charging our batteries, we shut it off. And it usually will last right now. It depends on what we do during the day. One of the other things that pulls a lot of electricity for us is our water pump. We have a well and we have a well pump. And so that well pump, even though it's a soft start, it doesn't hit as hard on electricity when it starts up as a usual pump does. It draws quite a bit. So if we're doing a lot of laundry that day or stuff like that, we'll try to get that done while the generator's running. On a typical day like today, we'll start it out, run it an hour and a half. Maybe 12, 13 hours later, we'll start it again and run it. We do enjoy our comforts. And so, like I said, every application is different. You can go off-grid, like we need electricity to our house like we did, or you can go hippie off-grid and cook on a cook stove. That's your choice. But as you've seen, we do have some of the comforts. The microwave and the coffee pot. I've kind of got used to it, and we might have to get a little more fuel in the generator to make sure that we can have those luxuries. But for us, for our life, it works. What we found is that it's not hard to live off grid. It's relatively easy. One of the other reason that we decided to go off grid was in Alaska, they're not very generous about running power line. And so we assumed that, just like every place else that we've lived, is that we would build a house, get the power line put in, your typical stuff. But power company here in Alaska is different. They get quoted us a price of $80,000 to run electricity close to our house. And that was 7, 8 years ago. So I couldn't imagine what it is now. And it's typical to most people in Alaska. You see that a lot of people in Alaska do live off grid, and primarily that's the number one reason. $80,000 to put a power line to your house. For half of that, a third of that, you can buy yourself a really nice off grid system. They've come a long ways. They're very efficient. What I found is solar is a very efficient way to energize your house. The new batteries, the new lithium batteries that they're coming out with weekly, are becoming a lot more efficient. I can see maybe in the next 2 to 3 years to upgrade our system to more match, what we do. But for right now, it seems to work. We don't we don't worry about uh, turning all the lights off or whatever. Nowadays, the LED lights pull very little. We run our lights outside in this time of year. We got Christmas tree lights, LED lights around the house, and it adds a little bit to the darkness, you might say, this time of year. So we just wanted to take a little time today because it seems to always be the conversation. What is off grid? And like I said, to everybody, off grid is a little bit different. But for us, that's how it works for us.
And another perk we get from living off grid in Alaska is we get a free Alaskan Car Wash. Here is our truck, what it looked like when we come out this morning. You can see that they licked our truck. This is what the Alaskan Car Wash is. They actually will get down on their knees and get all the lower parts as well as the upper parts. They made sure to go all the way around the truck, and they even did the mirrors. It's a crazy thing here in Alaska. The moose come out onto the road, and then they'll get down on their knees in the middle of the road at night, and they'll sit in the road and lick the salt off the road. And they don't move for you. They just stand there and hold their ground. But this guy here, he made sure that he licked it all. We've had these two characters hanging around, so it could very well be these two that were in the driveway licking the truck. It's a crazy life we have.
stop heating. Thanks for using. I wish you a safe journey.